Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 573, written by Akennelley, The Blue Square. This happened to me over a period of about 6 months, about 35 years ago. I have never really been able to get even close to explaining this, and it's hard to put into words, but I'm about to try. The apartment I grew up in was run strictly on regulations. One of them was that the walls were painted pure white between tenants. We were not allowed to paint the walls. The bathrooms were tiny. If you were to sit on the toilet, center of the back wall, the tub took up the entire left wall. The sink and the counter took up the entire right wall. The door opened opposite the toilet and was close enough you could kick out your feet while sitting and kick the door open. On either side of the door, there was about 1.5 feet of pure white wall. I lived in this place for many years, but only for a period of about 6 months did the blue square appear. The blue square was a transparent blue, perfect square that could be seen on the left of the door, about 2 feet from the floor on the white wall. Think the blue glow around a lightsaber, but a small square. It was 2 by 2 inches. It was very much ethereal and not physical, like a foggy light. It was not able to be touched. The square felt like any other part of the wall. I was the only person who could see the square. It was always in that exact spot. I marked it with a pencil, and only in that spot. So I know it wasn't an issue with my vision. I gave up talking about it because nobody else could see it even if I outlined it. Then one day I went to the bathroom and it was gone. Nobody painted over it as my pencil outline was still there. I have no idea what this could have been. Case notes, file number 573. It sounds like some sort of holographic projection, but in a spectral band that others aren't able to witness. Very curious how your eyes or brain are able to process this information when no one else can. It reminds me of a condition I have called visual snow. There isn't much study on it, but effectively I perceive the world through a screen of very fine, tiny static. Think of an old TV turned on to white noise, but not quite as intense as that. The darker the room, the more obvious this static is. It's theorized that this is related to tinnitus. In both cases, the issue isn't with my eyes or ears, but the brain's processing centers for visual and auditory information. Now in your case, I do believe this blue square existed. It wasn't your mind creating it, more that your mind was able to decode the signals. Everyone could receive them, but only you had the hardware to decode it in the visual and conscious representation. What would it mean though? Some form of alien tagging system, perhaps? Or maybe even government-related testing. Case file number 574, written by PeaceLoveCali, High-Speed Glitches. This happened to me several times while driving. Times when I must have crashed, or worse, it was unavoidable, yet miraculously, somehow, I didn't. Once, I was driving straight at a 3-way intersection with my child in the car. I was on the street going straight, with another street ending perpendicular to the one I was on. There were no stop signs, so the street going straight had the right of way. A car turning onto the street from the other side would have to yield. Noticing I had the right of way, I didn't think about it, I just drove straight through the intersection, only slightly distracted because I was talking with my son in the car. I was about to pass the street, meeting mine on the right. Except that too late, I saw another car come through the intersection on my right and turn towards me, attempting to make a left turn, but right where we were. It was clear the driver hadn't slowed to see if a car was going through. They just plowed through to make their left turn, as they would if another car was not there. At the rate of speed each of us was going, and as close as our cars were to one another, I could see it was inevitable that we were going to crash. I hit the brake, but there just wasn't enough time to avoid the collision. I was literally about 3 inches from the middle of the other car. I was going to T-bone it. As I braced for impact, nothing happened. My car hadn't yet completely stopped, but the other car was suddenly way past me. Like I said, doing all I could to try to avoid the crash, it was impossible not to collide. Yet somehow, in a mere blink, we did. We both stopped for a minute, full of adrenaline. I looked over at the other driver, and I saw that she looked as confused as I was. Another time I was driving north on Interstate 5 in California, somewhere probably near Bakersfield. As it is for most of the length of the interstate, there were 2 lanes and many cars. I was in the left passing lane, behind several other cars going above the posted 70 speed limit. Unlike most of them though, I always maintain a safe distance behind the car in front of me. Always, except for moments when it's not possible, like when I get cut off or if a car in front suddenly stops, for example. This is what happened on this day, a bright, sunny California day. The air was clear and visibility was perfect. But in my little car, I can only see the car directly in front of me when the freeway goes straight. Unlike in a pickup or SUV or something, where you can see above the cars in front of you, and you can see what's going on ahead for the next half mile or so. I was following at what should have been a safe distance, while still being mindful not to slow down the cars behind me. When suddenly the car in front of me swerved a little onto the right lane to avoid hitting something on the road that they clearly hadn't seen ahead of them. In this slow motion moment, I could see for a fraction of a second that the 4 to 5 cars directly ahead of me in the left lane had all swerved and or stopped, and when I saw the giant thing in the road, I had literally no time to avoid hitting it. I couldn't swerve either. There was a car right on my right side, and a wall with no shoulder on my left. This giant thing looked like a very solid, heavy trunk or something, at least half as tall as my car. Hitting this would have been a pretty major accident, smashing the front end of my little car and causing who knows how many cars behind me going over 70 to crash into me, and so on, into a big pileup. I saw what happened and imagined the rest, all in the single second I had before I would crash into it, hard. There was no possible way for me to not hit it, as I couldn't swerve nor completely stop. It's not possible to go from 75 miles per hour to 0 in 1 second. Like in the previous scenario, I braced for impact, and suddenly, I was past the giant trunk. It happened so fast that I couldn't even see how I got past it, but I did. In my rear view, I could see the trunk was still in my lane, but I had gone through it. Finally, another time I was on the freeway in the left lane, behind a pickup with furniture in its open bed. Suddenly, because of the wind I guess, a large wooden drawer began lifting up in the truck bed, just a few feet in front of me. I couldn't swerve. Again, I had nowhere to go. I slowed down as much as I could before the big drawer would come all the way up and out of the truck bed and crash hard into my windshield because of the speed we were both traveling at. Physics would tell you that at a certain point, when the drawer lifts up higher than the top of the truck bed, wind will take it over, and it can only come out from that point. I knew it was about to crash into my windshield, and who knew how I would survive that at such a high rate of speed? I imagined being blinded by broken glass at the same time that heavy wooden drawer entered my windshield and smashed into my head. I really thought I was about to die. I know it sounds as though I had plenty of time to react and slow down, but it all happened in a matter of a second or two, and I didn't. I saw the drawer lift up higher than the edge of the truck bed, and then it went back down onto the floor of the truck bed, safe from an inevitable, windy, high-speed escape into my head. Again, I was saved by a miracle. I always think of these things as God saying, "It's not my time," and He or a guardian angel intervenes, saving me from the inescapable. But reading all these glitch stories herein, I've realized my experiences really could fit here as well, maybe quantum immortality. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Bonus file, written by Child of Godzilla, a man of sharp teeth and rotting meat. Last night, I read a story about a man who encountered a vampire. His story was very similar to what happened to me when I was young. It haunts me almost 35 years later. This was my response. When I was young, I was walking home, right at twilight, and approached by a man who just seemed wrong. I lived in a kind of rural neighborhood in the desert and knew everybody who lived nearby. I did not know this man. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, so that was normal, but everything else about him instantly terrified me. As I walked down the dirt road to my house, he paralleled me in the brush with his gaze locked right on me. The brush on the side of the road is thick and mesquite, and you can't move through it without getting caught up and scratched all to hell. This man moved right through. He never touched a single branch. He actually moved through it. He passed me up and came out onto the road ahead of me, standing right in my path. He smelled so bad, like rotting meat. He smiled at me and asked me to come with him to see a hurt dog. He never blinked and didn't look like he was breathing. His teeth were a disgusting shade of yellow and brown and sharp. His smile was terrifying. His eyes looked cloudy and gray. I remember not being able to move, and though I wanted to scream, I couldn't get a sound out. He reached his hand out and wanted me to take it. Right then, my dog, a big German Shepherd, came sprinting out of the brush, silent and fast. He jumped and snapped at the man's face. The man was so fast, he avoided my dog and was across the road instantly. My dog went at him again, and the man fled into the brush. Again, he didn't disturb a single branch. As soon as the man fled, so did I. I sprinted home, which was a couple 100 yards away. When I got home, I noticed I had urinated in my pants. My dog came home later that night, severely injured. We had to put him down. My dad told me he was in a dogfight. I knew he wasn't. I never told my parents, and I don't know why.